Yeah, why don't you play that clip so we have 40 seconds? So this is like a 40-second warning, Steve.
Okay.
And I'll holler at.
Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.
All right, good evening. This is a special meeting of the Merrimack Conservation Commission. This meeting is commenced now. It's May 19th, 2020. This special meeting is held, it has a single agenda item, and I'll review that. Unlike normal meetings, this is a virtual meeting, so there's some nuances to this, and I'll go through some of those. For those who may have called in, should you wish to view, you can do that a number of ways. You can go to Merrimack TV. You can watch it on channel 20, or you can stream it live on Facebook. Additionally, you'll see a phone number at the bottom of the screen. When we do get to the public comment section or portion of this meeting, if you have a question or you want to provide us that comment, you'll just need to push *9, and I'm pretty sure the instructions are there. Once you push *9, it'll kind of put you in a queue. We'll be alerted that you have comments you'd like us to hear. We don't really have a good system to take them in order, but we'll try to get through everyone's comments. It doesn't really say when you raised your hand, so to say, but we'll try to get through everybody. But when you start to make a public comment, it's important, if this were a physical meeting, would have a sign-in sheet, and you'd write your name and street address. But since we don't have that, just start your comments by giving us your name and your street address, if you will. And I'll try to remind you as we go through those. When we do patch you in, I'll call you by your last 3 digits of your phone number. That's really all the information we know about you until you start to speak. There will be an opportunity to provide, there was an opportunity rather to provide email comments. We did get a number of those. They will all be part of the official minutes of this meeting, and they'll be on the town website once we approve those final minutes. We've reviewed all those meetings. I will ask at this time, please don't continue to submit email comments. We don't want to have to multitask during this meeting and go back and forth and try to read. Your comments are important to us, so if you still have them, just call in and we'll take them. We'll take them over the phone instead. But we do have the ones that were received up until the beginning of this meeting. A few other administrative notes, just for the members of the commission. You may want to stay on mute unless you're actually saying something, particularly if you're in an area that might be prone to background noises. If there becomes a slight delay, some of the other Merrimack town meetings have implemented this best practice. If there is a delay between the visual and the audio, if that becomes an encumbrance, just, you can raise your hand or put it in front of the screen, and we'll see that and know that you have something to say, and I can call on you. Because we are participating remotely, all motions will be carried through a roll call vote. So I'll just call on each commissioner, and you'll give yay or nay. We do have representatives from Merrimack DPW with us. I don't believe we have a superintendent's office representative with us. Do you know, Gina, if they got back to us? She's unmuting.
There, they did get back to us. I can read Superintendent McLaughlin's note when it's time.
Okay, thank you very much. And one final thing, because we are doing a virtual meeting in lieu of an in-person meeting. Where's my note on this? Bear with me. In accordance with RSA 91-A 5-23. Each member of the commission will need to just state for the record where they are during this meeting, why they can't attend, who is with them, if anybody, and if they're able to hear the audio portion of this meeting. So I'll go ahead and start. I'm Steve Perkins. I'll be the chair for this meeting. I'm currently participating from my home. I'm in a quiet room in my home. I'm participating from home due to COVID precautions, and I can hear the audio. Let's see. Gina, would you like to go next?
Sure. Before I do, can I just say, because Matt's not participating, do you want to assign someone to take Matt's place?
Yes, I will. Let's go through this, and then we'll assign an alternate to fill in. Thank you, Gina.
Okay, I am Gina Rosati. I am participating electronically from home. Attendance was not reasonably practical due to COVID-19. I am alone in the room that I am in, and yes, I can hear the proceedings.
Excellent. Thank you. Mike Swisher.
Hi, I'm Mike Swisher. I'm at home right now, participating electronically due to COVID-19. I'm alone in the room, and I can hear everybody just fine.
Thank you very much. Cindy? Cindy is unmuting.
Mute. Hi, Cindy Glenn. I am participating in the meeting electronically due to COVID-19. I am at home alone, in a quiet room as well, and I can hear everything. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gage?
Hi, I'm Gage Perry. I'm participating electronically due to COVID-19 restrictions. I'm here in my house with my family, but in a quiet room, and I can hear you all fine.
Excellent. Thank you. Eric?
I'm Eric Starr. I'm participating electronically from home due to COVID-19. I'm alone in my room, and I can hear everything fine.
Excellent. Eric, since Matt's not with us tonight, would you sit in as a voting member, please?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Mike?
Hi, Mike Boisvert here, participating electronically because of COVID-19, and I'm alone in this room right now, and I can hear the proceedings fine.
Excellent. Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim Tenhave. I am alone in this room. There are family members in the house, but they shouldn't be interrupting us. I am participating electronically due to COVID-19 precautions, and I can hear all of you just fine.
Excellent, thank you. I don't see Pete. Pete is not joining us, okay? Mike, will you sit in for Pete as a voting member, please?
Yes, of course.
Excellent. I think that gets us through the administrative business. I'll read through this new business item. This is the only agenda item we have for tonight. Parking at Wildcat Falls. The commission is to discuss parking issues and overflow parking into the surrounding Courier Road neighborhood as directed by the town council. The commission is inviting public comment limited to this specific agenda item only. I guess before we receive public comment, I think it's important that I frame this discussion just a little bit. First, this commission, along with the Highway Safety Committee, was asked by the town council to provide feedback about the parking concerns at both Wildcat Falls and Horse Hill Nature Preserve. This commission of volunteers manages both of these parcels. Our jurisdiction really doesn't extend beyond the entrance of the parking lot. We know a lot of tonight's discussion might be about the on-street parking, but we hope that we use those discussions to really catalyze those areas that are within our jurisdiction to fix, and hopefully through this meeting we'll develop some alternatives and can make a recommendation back to the town council. Tim's been on this commission since before the current parking lot was built in 2011. He's put together a PowerPoint presentation that we'll share after we hear some public comment. It's not a presentation of solutions, but it's a presentation of alternatives. So that should he was kind enough to put that together, and that should, after we have some public discussion or public comments, we can review that and then go from there with the remainder of the meeting. I guess at this point, we are ready to open it up for public feedback. But before we do that, Cindy, I think you were prepared to share the YouTube video that Amy Simoneau, and I hope I didn't mispronounce her last name, her and some residents of Courier Road had put together a short YouTube video, and we wanted to start the public comments with that. And while we're getting that ready to share, if people want to push *9 and put themselves in the queue for comments, we'll be ready to start calling on people after that. Are you able to share that, Cindy?
I didn't.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Gina.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
You're right next to each other.
I think Tim, were you going to share it?
I can do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, because I don't have the ability. I'm on my daughter's computer.
All right. Let me get the screen to share. Hopefully you can all now see a blank YouTube. All right. I'll go full screen if it'll participate. Well, there we go. There's no audio, so don't be alarmed. And I believe that's it. And I stop to share.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Before we start taking phone calls.
Sorry.
Before we start taking phone calls, did any of the commissioners want to make some opening remarks? No? Okay. Let's see.
Did Gina, did you raise your hand?
I did. I guess I just want to introduce myself as I'm the ex officio of Wildcat Falls. So we do have on the telephones, we have Karen Labonte, who is the chair of Wildcat Falls Subcommittee, We have Andrew Duane and Liz Petrides, who are two members of the Wildcat Falls Subcommittee. So I would just like to recognize them. And we also, Amy Simino has been very, very helpful with bringing a lot of this information to our attention. She was the person that put together that very informative video to show us what the situation is. I just think that it's unfortunate that the situation has gone to this point. And I do hope that we are able to work together with all the factions of this town so that we can fix the situation. The neighborhood and the falls are nice places for everyone to visit again. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Mike, I think you had a comment also.
Which Mike? Not Mike Swisher. I did not.
Oh, you did not? Okay, I thought you were probably adjusting the screen. I thought it was a hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyone else? We do have two call-ins who would like to speak. Yes, Pete. I think you're on mute, Pete.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. As we go forward with this meeting, there's a couple things. I know Kyle Fox is here to discuss the footbridge, and I asked the police department to give us their perspective and opinions here as well. But now that Gene has pointed out members of the Wildcat Falls, I'd like to, maybe they have some firsthand accounts of what they're seeing that's gone on there over the past 6-8 weeks or so. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. And I think I see them. That's probably who's in queue to speak. We won't know their name until we call on them, but I guess I'll go ahead and start with some of these.
Steve?
Yes.
If you could call on 481 first, that's Amy Simino.
Okay.
I'm not sure if any of our other members are here because I don't have everybody's phone numbers memorized, but I did check before, and Amy's is 481.
I just patched her in. Amy, can you hear us? Could you?
Yes, I can.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you, everyone, for taking my call today. Thank you, and presenting that video. Let me just introduce myself. I'm fairly new in this neighborhood. I've been a Merrimack resident almost 3 years now, and the reason to this area. Sorry, I'm getting a call coming in, but I came in this area because, for one, the conservation area was within walking distance. Two, I was looking for a nice little neighborhood, quaint little neighborhood, minimum traffic on a dead-end street. And that's where I landed, was here in the Korea Road neighborhood. And proud to be a resident. Over the last 3 years, I have to tell you that I've seen an increase in traffic, overflow at Wildcat Falls. I definitely have had concerns, as you guys well know, and I wanted to share that with you. But as I dug into this, I also realized there was many other residents in this area that had the same concerns for many years. Actually, I've found out that this has been going on well before 2011, when Wildcat Falls parking lot was expanded. So with the current situation, yes, it has made it much worse. But I do want you to know that this has been an ongoing issue. It's not just because of COVID. So I'd like to end with that. I know that there's other people in the queue that would like to be heard. But I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to share this video publicly and reading my letters and taking my calls. And I hope that we can all come up with a really good solution where we can all find this area safe again and be able to protect the wetlands.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, Gage.
I just want everyone who's listening to realize that whatever decisions get made here tonight are nothing more than a suggestion. We have no enforcement ability. And so anything that we come up with, any plan, has to go back up in front of town council or the police department or whoever for approval before anything gets implemented. So this is a roundtable, but anyone who feels that we're going to be able to make some decisions and some decrees here, we can't. So this is a discussion only.
Yeah, Gina?
Understood. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out that caller 088 is Andrew Dwayne from the Wildcat Falls Subcommittee. So if you could call on him next, that would be great.
I can do that. Thank you. Okay, caller with the last 3088. We've connected you in. Please start by giving us your name and address.
Hi, I'm assuming you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, this is Andrew Dwayne. I am, as Gene indicated, the recording secretary of the Wildcat Falls Subcommittee. I am at home in my living room. I'm currently alone. I can hear everyone correctly.
Excellent.
So we've been doing some informal, occasional surveys of the street parking and the lot parking situation. The few times I've been down in the last couple of weeks, I have seen significant overflow on the street. Many cars with out-of-state plates also, which is an additional concern. I understand and empathize with the problems. We've actually been aware of Wildcat Falls parking limitations for some time. And in fact, previously had looked at some options for expansions and being able to deal with this. A recent informal conference between the Wildcat Falls subcommittee members decided to bring forth some ideas to this meeting to see what could be done in both the short and long term to address the solutions. If you'd like, I can go through a few of the options we've talked about, or I can leave that for later.
No, please share them.
Okay, so the immediate concern is, of course, with the COVID-19, stay-at-home restrictions. There are a great many more people out walking town parks and such. So the current situation is pretty much a worst-case scenario. Although, as we've noticed for the last several years, on a nice weekend in peak summer, we often see the same situation. The parking lot is full and cars start parking outside on Courier Road, which is a small, quiet residential neighborhood not designed to have cars parking in it. This goes back to even before the original parking lot expansion. The current lot has a capacity of about 15 cars, give or take, depending on the size of the cars. And about room for 6 more parked along the left-hand side where they are not originally supposed to park, but those signs seem to have been taken down. We're thinking of trying to use other town properties, such as the high school parking lot, to be as marked overflow parking for Wildcat Falls. We think that might even be a good long-term solution for summer because the high school parking lots are not in use during summer. We'd have to coordinate this with the town council and school committee. But the Wildcat Falls trails through the town center trail extensions connect with the high school parking lot. It's a very short walk to get into the Wildcat Falls area. And we think that would present one of the best short-term options for increasing the parking capability. We think that should be coupled with some signage at the park entrance, maybe also at the kiosk, strenuously requesting that people not park on the street, pointing out where the overflow lot is, and maybe indicating where some of our other town parks are that are not experiencing such parking problems. Potentially Horse Hill Nature Preserve or Greater Woods or one or two of the other areas. We felt that a polite requesting approach to start with would be better than big no parking signs, which are not really feasible to do and would actually restrict residents from having visitors that come and should be allowed to park on the street. We could also announce on social media, put up perhaps a map kiosk at the alternate trail entrance to help people navigate back into the rest of the park. For longer term, I noticed Tim Tenhave had put together some suggestions for parking lot expansions. I had also presented some last year to the Conservation Commission, and there are a couple of simple expansions that could give us 5 to 10 more spaces and a few more aggressive approaches that could give us 15, 20, or 30 more spaces as needed. But I think because of the neighborhood Wildcat Falls is in, perhaps such a large parking lot expansion is not feasible. We need to look at limiting traffic to the area.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew, for your feedback. We'll go ahead and hear. We have 2 more callers in queue. Let's go ahead and hear from them and see if others pop up. Caller with the last 3 digits, 524. You should be patched in. Would you give us your name and address to start?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, excellent. My name is Paul Marone, for the record, at 29 Courier Road. And I am in a quiet space and can hear everyone. So I just wanted to start by thanking you, everyone here on the committee and on the call, for taking the time to hear our concerns in the neighborhood. My family has been living here for about 4 years, and we absolutely love it. And the fact that it is a dead-end, quiet neighborhood was one of the biggest reasons that we did purchase this property and decide to move here to Merrimack. And we love it. Absolutely love it. We have seen the traffic increase quite a bit each year as it has gone by, especially on the warm days. We recognize the situation that we're in now with COVID and understand that people do need to get out and so on. But in an effort to keep, share the time with everyone else, I just thought that I think everyone's heard the concerns about the high traffic, the speeding, the parking, the trash, the influx of people from out of state, and those types of things. So I thought I might be able to provide a little factual evidence information that might help us in deciding what to do moving forward, because I do agree that we want to work together and try to come out with the best outcome. So I took some time this past evening yesterday to review some of the security footage from my home, which is right down at the end towards Wildcat. When you go past my home, there's only 12 other houses that you could be going to other than Wildcat Falls. And, we would, coming outside on the weekend, 30 seconds doesn't go by without a car going by. I said to myself, I've really got to see what these numbers actually are. And when I did, I was a little surprised. So I just thought I might put that out there. So for example, on Sunday between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., I counted 147 vehicles driving by the house. And between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., I counted 93 vehicles. So when I look at that number and I say with only 12 houses, past mine to get to Wildcat, on an average Saturday or Sunday, on a nice day, this traffic starts as early as 9 a.m. and can go all the way up until 7 o'clock, right? So looking at those numbers, if we just take that and we average it and bring it to around 120 cars and lower the 9 or 10 hours of volume to 6 hours, and I come out with the fact that we're talking about 720 cars driving by in a 6-hour period. And if you think about that, within some people have, 2 people in a car, some people 5. We've seen conversion vans pull up with 7 or 8 people get out of them. So if we just take an average of 3 people per vehicle, we're talking about 2,160 people coming into Wildcat Falls Reservation from our entrance here at Wildcat. And when I think about that, I say, that's an awful lot of traffic for a dead-end street with 12 houses on it, you know? And that's something you see like in front of an entrance to an amusement park or something like that. So I just thought that I would point that out again, to not take too much time because there's a lot more I'd love to say. I will say that I've been very, very thankful with what the police department has done by sending down the patrol, putting out the signs of the parking on one side, responding to our calls and our emails. Everybody has been great. So the last thing I did want to mention was I really appreciate the presentation that was put together. And looking at the future options, I just wanted to make note of the fact that I think the one thing that is very important to us, and I think almost everyone in the neighborhood would agree, expanding the parking lot might alleviate some of the parking, but it doesn't lower the volume of people coming into the neighborhood. So I think that's one thing that would probably be not very helpful, if anything, make the problem worse. So using an alternate area that was suggested, like by the high school or Watson Park or things like that, I think are a great long-term solution. In the immediate time, I don't want to ask that we necessarily stop anyone from going to Wildcat directly, but with that volume of people, I would not be disappointed to see the lot maybe temporarily stop for a short time until we can get some type of better solution in place. And other than that, again, I just want to thank everybody for allowing me the opportunity and others to speak and reading all of our stuff and hearing from us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for sharing your feedback with you. Just a couple reminders. There is only one other person, one other call in the queue right now, and we'll call on them next. If you do have a comment you'd like to share with us right now, you have to push *9 so that we know that you want to share that. Also, just a reminder, I know we did receive any of the emails we received up until the start of tonight's meeting have been shared with all the commissioners. They've had a chance to read those over, and those will become part of the official minutes. So if you did send that feedback into us, you don't necessarily have to share it again, but you're welcome to if you'd like to. Caller with the last 3, 883, you have now been patched in. Would you start by sharing your name and address, rather?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Heidi Marr, and I live at 17 Corrode. I'm about the 6th house down on the right-hand side with the big white fence in front. I've been here since 1997, and just the immediate measures that you've taken to stop the flow of traffic coming down has been wonderful. My fence line can reach speeds of 40 to 50 miles an hour. I've almost come out of my driveway and gotten clipped many times by the speed. The other issue, of course, is the trash that's being left behind. It's really disrespectful to everybody that lives in the neighborhood. I think that putting it down at the high school is definitely a viable situation, and maybe try to make that the permanent entrance, especially on the weekends, so that we can stop the flow of traffic down Currier Road. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi, for calling in. There's not another caller with the hand. So Pete, would you like to make a comment? And Pete, before you do, I'm sorry, I think you jumped on right before we all made this statement about where we are tonight, why we're calling in remotely, and who is with us, and whether you can hear the audio. Will you just say that for the record?
Well, I can hear you loud and clear. I'm at my home. I'm around. My family may be intermittently around, and I am here virtually with you because of the pandemic.
Thank you very much, Pete, and thanks for being here. Sorry I hijacked what you had to say.
No problem. I just, before the callers get off, so I was told that residents on the Courier Road neighborhood were actually taking the no parking signs down, the temporary no parking signs down. And I wanted to know if there was any veracity to that from our callers.
If anyone would like to give feedback on that, just push *9, please, and we'll see. Oh, there is one caller with the last 3883. That's Heidi again. I'm going to unmute her.
You hear me?
Yeah, I was looking for the button.
I'm not sure if the residents were the ones actually taking those signs down, but most of them seem to have stayed up most of the time. So, I mean, I don't know what the solution is to that, but I think most of the residents here had no problem with those signs being on the side of their yards because it definitely stopped more traffic.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Gina. Gina, who's on mute?
Now I'm not. So back in September, first of all, I just want to point out that this is not, the situation at Wildcat is not new to COVID-19. Amy Simino did send Merrimack Outdoors an email back in September 23rd of 2019 and was discussing trash that was left behind and dog waste that was left on the trails. So this has been an ongoing problem. I did receive, probably when the weather started getting nice, I did receive an email from Grace Wilson, who lives at 35 Courier, and I've communicated with her a number of times since then. She is not able to call in tonight, and she did submit a public comment and asked if I would read it. So I would like permission to read that now, if possible.
Yeah, sure, Gina, please.
Okay. It's a page and a half, so bear with me here. So from Grace Wilson, 35 Courier Road, the last house that abuts the entrance to the falls. My mom and I live in the house on the corner right next to the entrance to the parking lot at the falls. My mom has lived here for 55 years, and I have lived here 50 years. We have never had any issues living on the land adjacent to the falls until the town purchased it, put the parking lot in, and publicized its location. We and the neighbors fought against the lot going in, but were not listened to. Our concerns of more traffic, partying, drugs, drinking, and vandalism has come to pass and has made our neighborhood unsafe and has brought us to this moment. We didn't realize the town was going to publicize the park's whereabouts in travel magazines and the LL Bean catalog and YouTube. We would have fought against that as well, and we could have told the town it was not in the best interests of the town or neighborhood or the park to do this. It has created a mess and has become disruptive to our way of life. We have counted over 150 cars on recent Saturdays and Sundays. Cars, people, animals all day long. We even had a tour bus from Canada drop off 75 people last year, and the bus idled for over an hour before it finally moved. The neighborhood called the police, and we were told it's a nice day and a holiday, don't worry about it. That was the end to our neighborhood safety and homey feel. Addition to the heavy traffic, cars are blocking our driveways and mailboxes, and the only fire hydrant, people are throwing trash and allowing their pets to defecate on our lawns. The street is so crowded with cars that people and their dogs are walking on all the lawns to get to the entrance to the falls, trespassing on our property. They hang out on our lawns, playing loud music and talking loudly and just being rude to the people who live in the homes. We even had sunbathers on our lawn with their car stereo playing and them laying on our lawn in swimsuits. They didn't care they were trespassing. The cars are parked one on top of the other in front of our homes. A lot of us have sprinkler systems and the tops get broken off due to being driven over when cars park on our lawns. And each time there is a cost to us to repair our sprinkler systems. The increased traffic has taken away our safe neighborhood, so children can no longer ride bikes or play or walk their dogs. People cannot walk down the street due to the amount of cars and the speeds they are traveling at. Our posted 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign went missing. Cars attempting two-way traffic when cars are parked in front of one of on one side of the street creates gridlock. Cars are parked on the right-hand side, often blocking the fire hydrant, creates dangerous conditions for emergency vehicles to get down the street, park, and stage rescue and recovery. They normally park in front of our house, and this won't happen if the cars are allowed to continue to park on the lower circle of Currier Road. Cars will have to be towed, and precious time will be lost for rescue or putting out a fire. The town has another access point to Wildcat Falls near Merrimack High School, and there's ample parking at the other entrance. The repairs to the footbridge should be a top priority, and the Currier Road access should be used for local and foot traffic only. There is no reason why the Currier Road neighborhood families' lives should be disrupted with another access point available to the town and visitors. While the bridge is being repaired, I am asking that no parking signs be placed on the entire lower circle of Currier Road. You have placed them on the left-hand side, but no one was parking on the left-hand side to begin with. They are parking on the right-hand side. We need the right hand around the lower circle, no parking as well. My personal story ties in what is going on with the amount of traffic and people parking on our lawn and in front of our home on Currier Road. I have PTSD, panic disorder, and anxiety disorder, along with 2 different brain injuries I received in a car accident. What people don't understand about PTSD is it comes on suddenly by being triggered. Mine is triggered by the opening and closing of car doors and trunk slamming, the locking of cars with the beeping, and the car alarms going off. My brain injuries make me need a quiet lifestyle without a lot of crowds of activities. It's why I live at home and not in the city. My home on Currier Road has always been my safe haven. Wildcat Falls has always been my place of calm and tranquility, but I don't feel safe anymore. My PTSD is triggered and my panic and anxiety attacks are amplified. Add a lot of strangers walking in front of my home and I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe in a home I have lived in for 50 years. The woods that gave me solace now give me fear. I live in a constant state of panic and anxiety to the point where I don't go outside in my front yard very often anymore. My bedroom faces the street. I have had to move my bed as far from the windows as possible. I don't open my windows or my shades anymore because every time I look out, I see strangers in front and it sets off my conditions. I shouldn't have to live like this. I shouldn't be afraid in my own home or out in my yard, in my neighborhood, or down the trails I know like a second skin. My whole way of life has been affected by the amount of cars and strangers in front of my home. Having no parking on the lower circle, especially in front of our home, would help on so many levels. It would allow our children to ride their bikes and walk their dogs. It would allow traffic flow easier to and from the lot. It would allow emergency vehicles a place to stage and rescue. And lastly, it would personally assist me and calm my PTSD episodes, my anxiety disorder and panic attacks, so I could function more normally on a daily basis. I would feel safer in my home and outside in my yard. Our neighbors should be able to have their children play and ride their bikes. Dogs should be walked without fear of being hit by people speeding down the street. This is an older neighborhood. Most of us have lived here over 40 years. Help us reestablish the safety of our neighborhood and open the access point near the high school. Close parking on Currier Road for people heading to the falls. Thank you. Grace Fairburn Wilson, 35 Currier Road.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
There is one more public comment here. I don't know. Let's see if I can patch them in, and then we'll look at Tim's presentation. Last 3 digits, 524. Would you just state your name and address for the record?
Yes, this is Paul Marone again, and I only decided to jump back in for a quick moment because there didn't seem to be a ton of other participants, and that was something that I just wanted to mention and make sure that everyone was aware of. I think that there's a lot of other people in the neighborhood that really would like a lot to say, but maybe don't feel comfortable in this type of setting, voicing their concerns. And I just wanted to make sure that the committee and others knew that it's not just 2 or 3 of us down here that have a concern, that I have talked to almost every single resident up and down the street in the entire neighborhood, and everyone is on the same page. It made me think of that about some requests or something about signs coming down. I do know that there was a couple residents further up towards Babusick, off on one of the two side streets there, that might not see the volume as easily because they're a little further removed and may have had some questions about it. But I have personally witnessed the people parking for Wildcat taking the sign down, throwing it in the woods and parking, not once, not twice, but more times than I can count. I've gone out there myself and put them up and pounded the back in the ground, literally almost on a daily basis, at least once every other day or two. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. And one last thing I just thought I'd mention is, I know that this isn't a situation where we're able to make decisions and so on, but when we had talked about a resolution, a lot of people in the neighborhood are okay with and in support of resident parking only on the street as a solution, with the idea that if the parking lot is full, people will eventually find the other entrances when they realize they can't park on the street. And that's why we think that that will be very, very helpful. I don't think anybody's really worried too much about when they do have company and visitors. We can always have a few visitor parking passes and we can share our driveways. So I just thought I would make that note. Thank you again very much for listening to what we had to say.
You're welcome. Thank you, Paul. And I guarantee you every member of this commission understands there is a coalition of concerned residents involved in this situation. Tim, did anyone want to say something before Tim shares his presentation? No? Okay, if you're ready, Tim.
Okay. By the way, if you see that I'm looking in another direction, I'm just trying to manage a couple of different computer screens. That's all I'm doing. So
I figured you were fly fishing.
It is actually a very nice place to fish, and I'm assuming you can guess what I'm showing on my screen. So, in my background, anyways, that's the lower falls, Wildcat Falls. So, all right. So, can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me just make an adjustment on my screen so I can continue to make this go forward. So this is something that I put together just to try and stimulate conversation and bring some order to the conversation. In no way was I trying to advocate for one item or another. I really just wanted to have us have a process to follow, but we can deviate at any time. Any of the members wish to speak about something else or shift the conversation, please say so. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I am an alternate member, and I'm also a former resident of the neighborhood. I spent 16 years in the neighborhood. I know quite a few of the people who have been spoken about here. I don't know the newer members because I've been gone for a while, but I do understand some of the concerns of the neighborhood and can speak to traffic and other issues, seeing how I lived right on the corner of Courier and South Eagan Drive for many years. So if you've got any questions, members of the commission, about what I've seen in the longer past, I'd be happy to share those with you. So let's get started here. Let me see if I can get this to move forward. And I should be able to. So I just wanted to remind everyone why we're here. We were charged by the town council on April 23rd in order to look at this in a number of places. This specific meeting was put together to address Wildcat Falls Conservation Area only. And we'll go to the next slide. So what I wanted to do is just kind of highlight some of the different things that we've seen. So this is a picture from April 25th at 11:25. It shows that all the spots were taken. It shows that cars are parallel parked along one side of the property. Like was mentioned earlier, there were signs that disallowed that parking because it's close to the wetlands, and we did have officer support during there. And we had a number of other cars coming in, and I've got quite a few more pictures to share if we want to look at that, but I'm not going to spend the time now. So I also wanted to, while I've got all of you, I just wanted to share this. This is the sign that you keep hearing about. These signs are placed all along the street, Courier Road, and in and around the neighborhood. It was mentioned it's on the left side, so as you're driving into the neighborhood from the Busiest Lake Road, it would be your left side, which I believe is probably the even number homes, if I remember correctly. At least it is going down Courier Road. So just for your awareness. All right.
Yeah. So, Tim, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, so back in that picture of the parking lot, do you have any idea when those signs were taken down for the parallel parking along the backside?
So I went and I looked at pictures I've taken over the years. I don't have any pictures that actually showed from 2014 on. And I do know in 2012 those signs did exist. And in this presentation, you'll actually see 2018 pictures, and they're not there. So sometime early on, after the first couple of years that the parking lot was expanded, they came down, or disappeared or whatever. So
my memory of that is after that, because the reason the parking lot was no parallel parking to that side was to allow emergency vehicles down through this parking lot once the side full. That was the purpose of one side.
I believe you're correct. That in the close proximity to the wetland. So. Anything else, Gage?
No, I just want to make sure our memories are.
Yep. Okay. So tonight, what I thought we would do is we would take a look at near-term options, which I put as 1 to 6 months. The reason for 1 to 6 months is we are an advisory organization, so we'll be making recommendations or suggestions, as Gage put it earlier, to the town council and to the highway safety committee, and it'll take a little bit of time for some of this to process through. So then just to enact some of this can also take a little bit of time. Then we could look at options that could be done in the next year, within the next 6 to 12 months. And then I thought we'd look at things that could happen 1 year or more out. And with that, let's start with the near-term options. So what the slide shows you is a couple of different views that I got from Google Earth. And I have Google Earth running in the background if we actually wanted to look at something live. But it basically shows you in the upper left. And here you can see that the entrance coming in off the street with the rocks that help direct traffic towards the parking lot. This is the opposite view in the parking lot looking back out towards the street, towards Hemlock. That's out here. In the top right picture, this is showing you cars that are parked in the lot with the kiosk in the back or in the farther screen and the gate that's here. And then in the lower left is Google Earth was actually situated fairly close to the gate and looking at the parking area. This view is interesting because we have a number of trees in here, and behind the trees we have some fencing that was put up a few years ago to help limit people viewing into backyards of the neighborhood, and when folks are in there in the evenings or towards dusk in their vehicle lights. And I know that's not completely effective, but I think over time it's gotten a little bit better. So some of the near-term things we can be thinking about potentially is resetting the current lot for more or less spaces, or we could close the current lot, or maybe some other restrictions. So I'd like to open it up to the rest of the commission to see what your thoughts are on these kinds of things. Steve, do you want to drive this part, or do you want me to keep going?
Why don't you keep going if you would?
Okay, so I think Pete raised his hand first.
Yeah, Tim, thank you. I'm just wondering, I see the rocks in the picture in the upper left corner. And I see maybe we could increase, I'm a believer that maybe we increase or expand the parking lot in however way we can do it, maybe to add some significant amount of spaces. You know, I heard a suggestion from one of the residents about closing the parking lot right now. And that concerns me only because I think all you're going to do is just all those people that do get in the parking lot are going to park in the street anyways. So I see this as an opportunity maybe that we could, you know, expand this lot. By looking at these pictures, I do see we might even have to take some of the woods to do that. But if we can increase it by 20 more spaces, maybe that would help.
Okay. I think I saw Gina next.
Yay, I did it. Okay, so after talking to a couple of people, I am sorry, Pete. I'm kind of going in the exact opposite direction as Pete. I don't think we should expand the parking lot after all. I know that the subcommittee did come before the Conservation Commission last year with the thought of expanding the parking lot, but after talking to some of the neighbors and listening to their concerns, my feeling now is that expanding the parking lot is just going to bring more people in. We're still going to have a problem with too many people. They're still going to spill over onto the street. My feeling at this point now is, and I know it sounds drastic, but right now it's broken and we just need to close it. We need to close the parking lot. We need to let the situation cool off. I think that after speaking with the school board, they are interested in working with us so that we can send overflow traffic to the high school. And right now, I think that where there's not going to be any more school through till the end of, through till next fall, I think that we should be sending all of the traffic down to the high school, close Courier Road completely off close the whole entrance off. No one gets in. I know it sounds drastic, but I think that at this point now, until we let the neighborhood cool down, another one of the problems is that there is so much publicity about Wildcat Falls. And a couple of the neighbors told me that in an LL Bean catalog, the most current one, I haven't seen it, that Wildcat Falls is listed as a hidden place that people should be going. So we're getting national exposure to this. I mean, it's 87 acres, and yeah, it's a nice waterfall, but there are other waterfalls. So I think that if we close it, we let the place cool off for a while, and that way people can stop thinking about it. Right now, everyone's thinking about it, and I think that we just kind of need to get it out of people's heads until it cools down. Gage doesn't like that idea.
So I think Gage edged out Mike. So Gage, you're next.
All right. So Gina, absolutely. I'm in complete concert with you right now. I don't think we should open that parking lot up any larger than it is now. We did that before. Obviously, up at Horse Hill, we had some space to do it, and it is still full now. And on a warm, sunny day like today, there's still people parking out in the street. So if we make that parking lot bigger, we're just going to see more traffic. I don't think that's going to solve any of the problem. All of the issues, not all of the issues, but a number of the issues we're talking about here seem to be an enforcement issue. People are, even some of the pictures they sent us, the people parking in front of the sign, there's a police order that says no parking, and people are parking in front of the sign. I don't know what the problem, why can't these people just be ticketed and towed? I mean, how many times is that going to happen before people stop doing it? I mean, parking on the street is going to be difficult because it's legal. So unless we're going to have some type of town ordinance that says, resident parking only, or something to that effect that allows residents to have guests and not have on-street parking for non-town members or something like that, I don't know. But to me, this is an enforcement issue. If you have people trespassing on your property, trash on your property, trash on public property, this is all enforcement issues. And that's a burden that to put on the police, I understand, but how many times are things like that going to happen if we towed vehicles, ticketed people, citations for people? At some point in time, it's going to be known as maybe an unfriendly area to come visit. I don't want to increase the size of the parking lot, because I think this has got to be something that's got to be dealt with up front from an enforcement point of view.
Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to say something. I know there appears to be a caller who's raised their hand to speak. Caller, I just want to let you know that we're going to speak for a little bit and talk about these few things, and afterwards we're done for a little bit, then we can possibly open up the line and let you join in. But there's two other commissioners and the chief would like to speak. So Chief, I'm sorry, but Mike had put his hand up quite a while ago. I'm going to let him speak and then let you join in. Okay. All right, Mike.
Yes, I agree with some of the things that Gage and Gina just said, and one of the residents. I think there's no one easy solution. I think you do need parking enforcement, and one of the residents mentioned something about maybe permitted street parking that could be done with signage saying that. Also, I took a look at the high school, the trail entrance by the high school. I don't think that's viable in the short term. That might be something that would take a lot of work to get known in the long term. It's very difficult finding that trail by this. If I was at the right place by the softball field down by the road there, so that would take a lot of signage, and it would have to change behavior, which would take a long time. And I also do agree that we should not expand the parking lot. We should enforce the ban on street parking. We should look into the high school as an alternative in the long term in conjunction with this entrance. But I think people are kind of habituated to coming down Courier Road. And there's really nothing we can do with Wildcat Falls being on TripAdvisor and being all over the internet. I don't think the town purposely did that. That just happened. This is not going to be easy, but in the short term, probably the most effective thing would be like parking tickets or something like that. People parked illegally. Closing it off would cool it down, but I don't think I agree with that. But we do need to kind of look at all different situations and a multifaceted approach here, I think, short term and long term. Thank you.
All right. Chief, would you like to join in?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, thank you for letting me be here tonight. I know this is kind of a hot button topic. It is with us too. We talk about enforcement issues. First of all, I just want to reiterate to everybody, and for anybody who's listening to this, we have 3 officers on the street during a pandemic and a supervisor. And we get down there as much as possible. It's not only creating a problem for the people in that area, as far as their complaints to the people on the commission and the council, but it's creating problems for us too, because now we're taking people away from what we need to be doing to put them down there. So we talk about enforcement. These are the reports that I've pulled, and I don't know if you can see these or not, but those are the reports I've pulled over the last 10 years, as Councilor Albert asked me to do. This year so far, we've had 7 complaints down at the Wildcat Falls. If there's a problem in these pictures that we show, and that's great, there's pictures, but if somebody doesn't call us to say, there's a car parked in front of the fire hydrant, or we got a call. Well, the 7th call we got this weekend was from somebody who says that 2 days previous to the day they called, 2 days prior, there was a car parked in front of their mailbox. They couldn't get their mail. Well, it's impossible for us to do enforcement if you're calling us 2 days after an incident has happened and you can't get your mail, because there's nothing we can do about that. And again, we get down there, and more so now, as much as we possibly can. A few weeks ago, one of our officers was here located at the police station and got a call that cars were parked on both sides of the street down at Wildcat Falls and Courier Road. He left from the police station, and it took about 3.5 minutes for him to get down to Courier Road, and there wasn't one single car parked on either side of the road. You know, on one hand, we're talking about cars being parked on both sides, but the other hand, we're getting a letter that indicates that the signs on the left side do no good because cars are only parking on the right side. Well, it's one or the other. It's either cars are parked on both sides or it's they're on one side. My frustration comes, and I'm sorry if I sound frustrated, but my frustration comes from, you know, everyone wants the police to enforce these things and the officers to get down there, but you have to remember a couple things. We are in the midst of a pandemic. There are many other issues that we're still dealing with in this town. And we don't have any more officers than we did before the pandemic. We have the same amount. So we're trying to balance everything. And because of the pandemic, people, they want to get out. Everything is closed. We're slowly opening things back up, and we're trying things you're seeing. The beaches are going to open and other parks are going to open. So the crowds that do go down there, and I'm not suggesting there aren't crowds. I walk Wildcat Falls religiously. I know what goes on down there, and it's going to get back to the way it was. And yes, right now there are more cars, but I think we have to be patient too and understand that, you know, things will get better as time goes on. You know, and I don't know if I'm just trying to go off on what everybody else had said before this. Again, the enforcement portion of it, we do as much as we can, but we can only do so much. If we don't get a call, 7 calls for unrelated items, is not helping us to do it. So I would, if it's such a problem, we need to know, and we will go down there and we will do everything we possibly can. We don't want people in this town to be miserable, but I also think you have to be very cautious when people are taking pictures of cars with Massachusetts license plates and sending them, because first of all, there is no law that indicates somebody from Massachusetts cannot come up here. That's number one. And number two, there's a lot of cars. There's people who work in Massachusetts who have cars that are registered out of Massachusetts but live in New Hampshire. There's rental cars, and that is a very slippery slope. And I would caution anybody, especially in that neighborhood right now, to not judge somebody by their license plate solely. That it can't happen. As far as the parking signs that we put up there, it was to try to help the people down there to make sure that there were no incidents with parking on both sides of the road so their fire truck could not get through. We have not had any calls whatsoever this year for cars parked so that a fire truck could not get through. We have 2 entrances. And again, I'm not saying it's never happened, but if we don't get a call, we don't see it and we can't take action upon it. So I just would implore the people in that area, if they see something, you're going to have to call us, because we're trying our best to get down there as much as possible. But again, with 3 people on and 28,000 other people in this town with other parks and everything else that we're dealing with, it's near to impossible for us to be down there 24/7. So thank you. And I obviously can, any questions you have.
Okay, thanks, Chief. There's been a couple of other commissioners waiting, so I want to get to Mike Swisher because he hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Chief Roy. So I'm not in favor of completely closing the property, but I did come across one idea. I'm not going to take credit for it, but the idea came across that perhaps, maybe even temporarily, we could turn the property into a residents-only park. The primary issue with the parking and the sort of chaos going on in the neighborhood, to me, seems to be one of volume. I think most of the problems disappear, including the need to expand the lot and maybe all but the best summer days, when we're outside of COVID time. But if it were residents only, that lot's probably sufficient. Like I said, in all but the busiest days on a nice summer day when people are swimming and such. And that could buy us time. I mean, if we wanted to do it maybe until there was a good access point, an alternate access point in place, either at the high school or at Watson Park or at both, maybe once, we complete the trails from Watson, we say, okay, we open it back up to everyone. But, it's a small neighborhood park, originally named 80 acres. And it's, the numbers that the caller, I think it might have been Paul earlier that was quoting, and he did some back of the napkin math, and it's 1,000 or plus folks coming in and out of the neighborhood on the weekend. That's pretty jaw-dropping to me. So I think it's maybe a middle ground, the idea of residents only, because that's going to naturally reduce volume. It's easier to enforce because you could use something like a dump sticker that most people would already have on their car. And word will get out, and the folks that come from Massachusetts or anywhere else, frankly, even just out of town, Merrimack does have much larger properties elsewhere that can accommodate more users. That's my 2 cents. At least in the short term, you could still make plans to create alternate access points. The high school option, I don't know if that's going to work necessarily when school is in session. In summer, when it's busiest, that might be good. But ultimately, I'd like to see maybe all access for the general public coming out of Watson Park. And we could maybe just make the lot at that point in the Courier Road neighborhood resident only. But I think you solve a lot of the volume problems and the parking issues and everything if you make the whole entire property resident only at this point, because then it's not a matter of, oh, the lot is full or the lot is resident only, I'm going to park on the street. That's legal. Well, park on the street if you want, but the property itself, like it's for residents only. I know there's a section of Babusick Lake, the town beach is resident only. There's a section of parking at Wasserman that's resident only. I think maybe the park at one point in its history might have been resident only. I'm not certain about that. But anyway, that's my 2 cents about restrictions. I don't think you need to expand the lot if you were to make it resident only. If you're not going to do that, though, expanding the lot somewhat, I know isn't popular with everyone, but it would take some cars off the street. And unless you put some more substantial no parking signs in and you really ramp up enforcement, people are going to still park on the street, during coronavirus and after on those hot summer days.
Thanks, Mike. I know there's a couple of others that want to speak, but Peter's been very patient. Peter, you want to jump in?
Just quickly, Tim and Steve, I'm wondering, we've got Kyle Fox on the line, and one of the issues is other accesses. And Kyle's here to talk about the footbridge. I think that's going to be good information moving forward. So maybe we want to hear from Kyle at this juncture. Tim, I don't want to. Hey, if you've got a, I don't want to interrupt your program.
No, this is really the commissioners' meeting, and if you all want to try and get Kyle in, I also wanted Kyle to speak to expansion options only if the rest of the commission, or at least the majority, wanted to speak to those, and then he can also speak to the town loop trail too at some point in our discussion. But Kyle, do you want to address Peter's question?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Peter, you're talking about the pedestrian bridge that's closed?
Yeah, that's correct, Kyle. I wanted you to talk about that too, because that takes a significant access away from the park.
Yeah, it does. So for those who don't know, we have a pedestrian bridge connecting over the Eagan River next to the F.E. Everett Turnpike, and it kind of connects East Chamberlain Road to West Chamberlain Road, connects the high school and down into the trails into Wildcat Falls, and eventually it will tie down into the Eagan River Trail project, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So we had to close the bridge recently. That came from initially DOT did a bridge inspection last fall and determined that there was some some deficiencies in the bridge, but because of access to the underside of the bridge, they couldn't really tell us how significant the problem was or wasn't. So we, as a town, hired a consultant to do an in-depth inspection. And some of you folks who have been out on that bridge probably saw the inspectors out there. They were out there for 3 days. They removed most of the wood planks so they could see the structural steel members underneath the decking. And unfortunately, what they found was significant rusting and pinholes and some baseball-sized holes in the structural members below the decking, which forced us to immediately close the bridge. On Friday of last week, we received the inspection report from the consultant confirming our decision to close the bridge. The report went on to discuss repair or replacement options. And for this bridge, unfortunately, repair is not really an option because of the way the corrosion is taking place. If we were to fix some of the members that are the worst ones to get it back open, it's probably a very short period of time before other members would corrode and we'd be closing the bridge again to fix those. So the only viable solution seems to be replacement. And the estimate that our engineer came up with for the all-in project was about $660,000. So I don't know if the council has received that report yet. They have, okay. So I assume Public Works and Town Manager Cabanel will be talking to the council at some point about what to do with that. In the meantime, I'm reaching out to DOT to see if there's any either bridge programs or alternate transportation programs with some funding available in the short term so we can get that critical connection back open. But at this point, being outside of budget season and happening rather quickly, we don't have any plans at this point.
Okay, a number of the commissioners want to speak. Gage, do you mind yielding to Eric since he hasn't had a chance to speak yet? Okay, Eric. Unmute yourself and you're ready to go.
Okay, so I visited Wildcat Falls several times over the past couple of weeks, taking just different measurements and seeing how many cars were there. Just to add some numbers to people's accounts earlier. On weekends, I've seen 83, 66, and 56 cars on separate days at about 2 p.m. each day. On weekdays, I've had 33 cars, and today there were 15 cars, which was capacity for the parking lot there. So just adding numbers to what people have been seeing. I've also taken some measurements of the proposed parking lot area. If we expand the parking lot, and if we expanded the parking lot at its most aggressive, we would see the capacity of the parking lot go from about 15 cars to about 35 cars. And that's if we expanded the most that we possibly can. At least that's my measurement. So it really wouldn't meet the demand of the current pandemic, although it would certainly help in a lot of those hot summer days and days like that. What I've seen is that really the best solution is to, when school is not in session, to turn the Merrimack High School parking lot into the main parking lot. I can only work when school is not in session, but that's also when the park is probably the most busiest. I measured that the Merrimack High School parking lot, if you were to walk that down the parking lot to the trail to the proper park on the other side of the bridge, is about a half-mile walk. As I think Mike pointed out earlier, the main trail is not very well maintained. It has a lot of steep edges. there is a second trail behind the softball field, which is much safer, but is also much more hidden. So there would have to be at least a few signs in that area showing directions. And what else do I have to say? I've also noticed the retention pond in the near the entrance, the current entrance, has been getting a lot of trash. I think the most of the trash that I've seen has been gathering there. I would pick it up myself, but I don't really know what the proper equipment to get that is, because it's all, a lot of it is gathering in the middle of the pond. So that, yeah, so that's really my input for now. I have to go. Well, I have to go for a couple minutes just because my computer's running out of charge, so I got to get my charge cord. But that's what I have to say for now, and I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
Great. So we've got Cindy. Gage was first to raise his hand, then Mike, and then Cindy. But Cindy, you haven't spoke. So is this something you want to chime in, or do we? Gage and Mike, I'm gonna let Mike Swisher. I'm gonna let Cindy speak since she hasn't had a chance to speak yet. So Cindy, why don't you give us your thoughts?
Okay, thanks, Tim. I unfortunately agree as well about not expanding the parking lot, only because of what happened at Horse Hill, where it really, we got a lot more cars in, but there's still problems, and it just doesn't seem like there's enough space there to expand it, and you're still going to have the traffic coming in. But something that Mike Swisher suggested about the residents only, I'm wondering do we have authority, to do that without an ordinance or a law? Could we require that? And if we did, how would that be enforced? Would that, the police have to be called? I mean, since there's nobody there, like at Wasserman, there's really people there, town employees there, I think that can check that. I don't know if anybody would be there at Wildcat. And I hate to suggest it, but I think we also have to think, for the moment, another possibility would be to completely close the entrance to walkers and cars. Because if we just close the parking lot, people are just going to park on the street. So for now, if we just completely close the property, it would stop things. And I'm wondering if the residents have voiced any opinion about would they rather see the roads like they are now, or would they rather have no parking on the roads? I mean, it wouldn't be up to us whether or not they would have resident parking passes. Of course, like Gage said, we're all just we're just an advisory body, but I'm just curious, if the residents have voiced anything about that. I haven't seen any in the comments. Obviously, it would be ideal if people had their own, if you had resident parking, but I don't know if that's something that Merrimack has done anywhere else. If that's possible, but I know the Highway Safety Committee will look, and they might make the determination to just close the parking on one side anyway. But unfortunately, yeah, there's definitely no easy answers, and I do feel for the people that live on that road.
Did anyone want to answer Cindy's question before we move on to the other commissioners? Pete?
Yeah, as far as the resident only, I believe that's going to have to be an amendment to the town ordinances, and I think it would be enforceable much like Wasserman Park, the swimming and the parking down there with the use of tags or stickers. And that's been kind of an onerous burden for them down there. I know Parks and Rec has recommended having somebody down there to basically be a parking lot monitor at times on the weekends. It really is, it's a tough enforcement thing. Can it be done? Yeah, it can be done through an ordinance though, and it'd have to be just, we'd have to go to the town lawyers and determine the proper wording.
Okay, still got a backlog that I've been holding Gage off for a while. So Gage.
I want to cycle back to the Chief Roy made a very good point, very salient, and something that we have not just here but everywhere is when people have a problem with something, waiting and 3 or 4 days and sending us a picture doesn't do any good. We have no enforcement abilities. All we can do is pass that information along as a complaint. So if people are having a problem with something, they really need to call the police immediately and report it, because reporting it to us is, that's nice. We can't really do much. So along that same vein, I think that was a really important point that Chief Roy made, and I want to make sure people understand that for all the properties, not just Wildcat. And again, this is another, I guess a more law-abiding side of it. What are we allowed to do? I mean, we resident only. Can we restrict public property like that to residents only? Can we have a law, or is there some type of ordinance that we can say you can't park on the side of a street? I mean, all these things that we're going to suggest here are, we're back up into chapter 111 here. Is what's anything we suggest all has to go up and be voted on and be part of the ordinance before the police can enforce any of this stuff. So, we're in a very fact-finding mission here right now as to what we can even begin to do. I mean, the police, their signs that they put up, they had a temporary order that they put up, those no parking signs. If that's enforceable by them, great. I don't think all those residents though want to have these signs jammed in front of their front yard all the time either. But if that's what it takes for a short period to get people to stay off the road and realize that once that parking lot's full, they're going to get ticketed or towed or something like that, I really don't think we have a whole lot of options to make this in the short term to make this work for anybody. Thank you.
Okay, so Mike Swisher, you had your hand up for a while and then put it down. Are you all set? Before I let Gina jump in?
Yeah, I'm pretty much good. I was going to mention though, speed bumps could be an option. It's not really a conservation commission type thing, but there are several complaints about speed in the neighborhood. I don't know. I think if you reduce the volume, that will maybe go away too. I mean, Merrimack residents are probably going to follow the speed limits more than out-of-towners, I would guess. Just another idea.
Okay, so Gina, you've been a little patient here with us, Gina.
Thank you, Tim. So I know I bounced this off a couple of people with mixed reaction, but one suggestion that I have is that we change the name back to 80 acres for a couple of reasons. One, because after I talked to Sharon and she said community development gets quite a few calls. They want to know about the waterfalls. The waterfalls is a big draw. So to have Wildcat Falls, people are searching online, and granted, okay, so if they Google, they'll see waterfalls, but it's not as in your face of Wildcat Falls. My other suggestion is, for now, we just take it right off the website. Pull it off the website and just don't have it up there for people to see, just to let things cool down right now. There's just too much going on in the neighborhood, and we need to let it cool down.
All right, Chief Roy, step right in. And I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
I have a double mute just in case. You never know what will happen. So I just want to address Mike's comment about the speeders. So because that was one of the things that we kept hearing about, we set up a speed sign down there that also captured an average of all the speeds. So 85% of the vehicle traffic follows the speed limit or under. There were a couple here and there that do, exceed the speed limit, which is 30 miles an hour. That's not in my control. But 85% is pretty good for a neighborhood that size, and especially that straightaway. So the issue of the speeds is we don't see that as an issue, because there are certainly other roads that you'll only find 50% of the time that the people are going the speed limit. So that was not the case in this area. Speed does not appear to be a factor. It's an average speed. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to say something before we move on to the other commissioners. Just a quick comment on speed. By the way, when I was a resident of the area, we had asked the Highway Safety Committee to look at speed, and I think the numbers were pretty similar to what Chief just spoke about. There was a 20-mile-an-hour sign put up. It was a yellow sign. Those signs are advisory. They're not required. It turns out, and I think to make that sign permanent at that speed, it required a number of other activities that required, and I'm sorry, my memory escapes me, but I thought it was a legal process to have a speed limit below 30 miles an hour in a residential area. So that's just a quick comment. And I thought I saw Pete's hand and Mike Swisher as well. So Pete?
Tim, when at some point, I wasn't aware the chief put up, the police department put up the traffic monitoring device. And what that would also tell us too is the peak times of traffic, which I'd be curious about from that. I know we heard one rough estimate from a resident, but I think the speed monitor or the traffic monitor could tell us, depending on how many days it was up there, what the peak hours were and how many vehicles and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Swisher?
Yeah, I don't have anything right now. Sorry, I must have not put my hand down.
Oh, okay. All right. I see Eric, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just doing some quick research on, I think it was what Gage asked about the legality of banning non-residents from a public park. So I found two cases, one from the Connecticut Supreme Court, one from the New Jersey Supreme Court. Both found that you cannot legally ban non-residents from a public park. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if Supreme Court decisions from other states count in other states, but that's all I could find. So the two states where such a ban has been challenged has both been found to be violating the First Amendment. So that's all I have to add about that.
Okay, so it looks like Gina, you've got your hand up.
Is this a public park, or is this a town-owned park that we have a measure of control over? Is this considered public? It's not a state park. I mean, the town of Merrimack owns it, but is it considered a public park?
I'm not sure there's a legal differentiation.
Okay,
That's what you're driving at.
Yeah, I'm just curious how we're able to do it at Wasserman, because Wasserman is not necessarily public. Pete looks like he's got an answer.
Yeah, Mike sorry, Pete. Mike Boisvert also signaled me. Mike, did you want to jump in before Pete?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, if anybody's ever been to Cape Cod in the summertime, they have town beaches that they limit to residential parking all the time. So, yeah, that's all I want to say.
And Pete?
One of the things that happened at Wasserman Park was that some of that money that was used was, I believe, federal or money that we couldn't outright make it a residents-only park. But based upon the way the money was spent on Wasserman Park, we could control access to the water, and that's why the beach is residents only, but the rest of the park. So it would all be, and how we came about acquiring Wildcat Falls or 80 acres, as you want to call it, and if there's anything on there that would prohibit us from doing so.
Okay, just a quick note. The town purchased the property in 1970 for $1 from the state of New Hampshire, and there were no specific other strings that are attached to it. So the deed is fairly simple, and I think you can actually read the deed off the website. If I think I posted it at one point. If not, I can provide a copy. So.
I mean, I'd certainly bring this up to the council and the town manager tomorrow, and maybe we could have some of the town attorneys give us their opinion on it and have them forward it to us, because it is an option, and it's been mentioned before, and I'm not necessarily against it. So, I mean, we could have the Legal Eagles review it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been talking about near-term things, and it's spilled over into a number of other issues. Do we want to think about any recommendations for near-term, or do we want to go cycle through the different pieces and then speak to recommendations, like I had put in the spreadsheet in the PowerPoint? What's the feeling? Gage?
Pete brought up a great point. And if the chief has the times that the traffic is really high in the short term, that might be a good way for them to get some targeted enforcement down there when we're having high part of the problem. And if again, and the no parking on the street signs, if that's something that the police they are able to put up those signs on their own ordinance and limit the on-street parking for. We'll have to pick some time frame, but I would think that would be two things we could do right away that would at least stop the parking issue. It's not going to stop the volume, but that would obviously start to curtail as people understand there's no place for them to be.
Yeah. Okay. How about we look at things we could do a little bit further out? Actually, quick comment. Right now, there is nobody from the public wishing to speak, but I did kind of tell folks that we might give them an opportunity later. So if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak on this part of it before we move on, please hit *9 on your phone, and we can recognize you and then move forward. And while we wait, Gina, you got something you'd like to add?
Yeah, Karen Labonte, the chair for Wildcat Falls, had sent me an article that appeared in the Telegraph back in 2015. And at some point, Kyle, I'm not sure if you remember that article. It was talking about trails that would be made. It almost sounded like DPW was going to, like there was grant money or something, but I'm not sure if you remember that or if you could comment. At one point you had quoted that best case scenario was 18 months, worst case scenario was 24 months. But I don't know if you can talk about what happened with that, why that didn't happen.
So, yeah, Gina, of course I can. I think what you're referring to is the DOT and Federal Highways Transportation Alternatives Program. We were successful in receiving 2 grants. The first grant we received was for the Eagan River Trail project, and the second one was for Woodbury Sidewalk. The River Trail project turned out to be far more complicated and expensive than we had anticipated. And we actually merged the 2 grants to fund the one project. And I'm happy to report that as of Monday, the environmental document for Federal Highway was submitted to New Hampshire DOT by our consultant, and the final preliminary design. Once we get approval on both of those documents, we're going to be moving into final design and possibility of construction next summer or the summer after that, depending on when federal money is available. If the commission would like, I do have a plan. I could share my screen and show you all what the River Trail project will look like now that it's nearly complete. But I'll leave that up to you, whether you want to take the time to see that or not.
So I think we do, Kyle, because that was one of the things that was on the line. But I did have one member of the public who had chimed in before you got a chance to speak. I'd like to let that one member have an opportunity, and then a second member just chimed in, and we'll let the second member come in after you've had a chance to provide the plan. Okay. So caller whose last three digits end in 003, I'm going to unmute you now, and you can please say, please start by giving us your name and your address, and let us know what's on your mind. Go right ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Labrie. I live on BB Lane in Merrimack. I used to live in Indian Rock for 11 years, so I'm pretty familiar with the Wildcat Falls area. Sitting on hold for a while was a good thing. It got me, ability to listen to what was being said by a number of people. First off, I think, in a comment to the chief, she had mentioned that things will get back to normal. I really do think this coronavirus thing is sort of let the cat out of the bag, right? You have people that now recognize that they have these wonderful places in Merrimack to go to. This traffic it's not going to disappear. It certainly, I don't think we'll go back to what it was 3 or 6 months ago, right? Where a lot of these places maybe had, 5 or 6, 10 cars in the parking lot at Wildcat, or on BB Lane had 4 or 5 cars on a busy time on a Saturday or Sunday. I think this is going to end up being somewhere in between. So I think, and I certainly emphasize with the people at Wildcat, because they've got it probably the worst out of the 3 larger parks in Merrimack, right? But you have to be cognizant that what you do at Wildcat is inevitably going to bleed over into the other 2 or 3 larger conservation properties. For instance, when Amherst closed their Greater Road parking lot, we went on BB Lane from going, 4 or 5 cars on a Saturday afternoon to 15 and 20 cars on a Saturday afternoon because they lost their parking area. So I am all for doing whatever you can do to fix Wildcat, but realize that what you do there is also going to affect all the other parks and all the other conservation areas in the town, and that this isn't going to be going away once COVID settles down, whenever. So, that was my point on that. Something else that I think that the town should investigate. Towns like Salem, Massachusetts, Rockport, the tourist areas, they all have homeowner only or resident only parking on some of the streets. I think that, when we moved into these neighborhoods and when other people were living here in the conservation areas, trailheads came into the neighborhoods, right? Nobody thought it was going to end up like it is. Nobody signed up for this level of traffic in front of their homes, right? So something needs to be done. And if it's residents only parking, I don't think you're going to find a lot of residents on these streets abutting these properties that are really going to put up much of a stink about it. Define at the different areas, like in Wildcat, you have a 25, 15 or 25 spot lot. Once it's filled, go away, right? Put the residents only parking ability down far enough where people are going to say, well, you know what, I'm not going to walk 3 blocks or 4 blocks to go for a hike, because people generally can be kind of lazy in that regard. So I think if you put it far enough out, and I don't want to push off my parking problem on somebody else. If it turns out that you can't do it far enough to keep people from parking there when the defined parking areas are full, so be it, right? You go back to on-street parking. But I think restricting parking would probably be a good place to start. And I do understand it has to go through the town council and everything else. One of the things that maybe I could suggest to the Wildcat people, because we do it here on BB Lane, is to be more proactive in leaving love notes, if you want to call them, on people's cars. We've had the problem with people parking perpendicular on the road, right inside the cul-de-sac. That means that when somebody parks perpendicular, you have a much smaller turning radius. Cars can't turn around. They end up backing out into driveways and cause even more problems. So we leave love notes, right? We put up on our little trailhead sign, this is how you park in a cul-de-sac, right? And we try to, I won't say get in people's faces, but we see somebody throwing trash out, we call them on it, right? It's uncomfortable for a lot of people to do that, but I think that's a good place to start. You see people parking in front of your mailbox, for instance, call them out on it. I do. Doesn't hurt my feelings, and we don't have anybody parking in front of our mailboxes anymore. So that's really all I wanted to say about that, was to kind of tell people they have to get involved also. You can't rely on the police. You can't rely on the Conservation Commission. You can't rely on the town council in a lot of cases, because everything that's going to be done is going to take months and months. But you have to take it into your own hands sometimes, as uncomfortable as it may be, with asking people, dude, I'm sorry, you're parking in front of my mailbox. Could you move over a little, or your car is kind of out in my driveway. Could you move your car a little bit? It's a town. Towns take time to change ordinances. That's my 2 cents worth. I hate to call without suggesting something. But I think that's might be a place to start, right? And do be cognizant that what you do at one conservation area inevitably affects the rest. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. I know the other Paul, who's been on the phone already, is looking to speak, but Paul Marone, I'm going to hold you off for a little bit. We were going to look at a plan from Kyle, but Chief Roy, did you have something you wanted to say quickly?
I just wanted to make sure that I go on record. I don't believe that it's a smart choice to confront anybody on any issue. If there is a parking problem, you need to call us. Only because you start confronting people and getting in people's faces, it's just going to create even more problems. So if there is a parking issue, someone's in front of your house, in front of your mailbox, I just would not suggest, and I oppose people doing that, because sometimes although there are many nice people out there, it can create a problem, and that could be a safety issue. And I just felt like it was necessary for me to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Kyle, you want to take the screen share and show us the plan, since we wanted to touch on the subject anyways?
Sure.
Thanks.
Let me try and find it here.
Well, while he's searching, so commissioners, how are we doing? Are we going to need a recess with this meeting, or are we ready to keep plugging away?
Kyle, how long is your presentation going to be? Is it a long thing, or?
No, certainly not. For some reason, I just can't
Merrimack
see it.
TV. I just made Kyle Fox a co-host in case he needed that requirement to share his screen.
Thanks, Nick. Maybe after Kyle's presentation, we can take a 5-minute recess.
Want to do that? Kyle's presentation and the 5-minute. And what do we have, Tim? We have just the midterm and the long term.
We do, yep. And when Kyle's done, Nick can let us know how he believes the best way to do a recess is.
Just so you know, you also have a caller on the line.
That's yes.
Has her hand up.
Okay, I found the plan. all set to go?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the Eagan River Trail is a project that was conceived back before 2009 by the Town Center Committee when they developed the pedestrian and trail master plan as part of their iTrack project. This was the #1 trail project on the plan, and really happy that it's about to get started. So I'm zoomed in pretty far into the plan to make it readable for everybody. So can everyone see my hand moving here?
Yes.
Okay. So by way of orientation, this is Daniel Webster Highway right here. Buckley's is across the street here. This is Watson Park. And the River Trail project focuses in the southwestern portion of Watson Park. This white area here where my hand is drawing now is the existing horseshoe-shaped sidewalk that's in Watson Park. And that's where the River Trail project will start. The River Trail is this yellow marked trail on this plan. So it's going to start at that existing sidewalk, come down to the, and for the folks who have been down in that southern part of the park, you see a chain link fence, a brown vinyl coated chain link fence. That's right here. So the trail is going to come through that fenced in area, which blocks off a bunch of remnants from the Harcross property, some safety issue areas is the reason it's fenced off. But that's where the trail is going to come through. It'll eventually work its way into over here, into the old tannery beds, which are right here below Daniel Webster Highway. This light yellow area here, folks who have walked on Daniel Webster Highway will know that we have an existing sidewalk at the road surface level that is covered with steel plates right now and has been for a number of years. This project will also address that issue because we're going to fill in this whole area. We're not destroying the old pens and everything. We're simply going to fill them in, which is actually something that the archaeologists were happy about because even though much of it won't be able to be seen, it'll still be there as part of the permanent record for the site. So the trail is going to wind its way into the sluiceway, and I've got some pictures I'll screen share for you that shows you kind of a pictorial view of how the trail is going to go right after this. So it's going to go into that old sluiceway, which is part of the Chamberlain Bridge. There's actually 2 arches that make up the Chamberlain Bridge. The main arch that carries the river and the sluiceway arch that will soon carry the trail. It used to carry water for the tannery beds. The trail is going to make its way through that sluiceway and get over towards the area of the fire station, though it'll be quite a bit lower than the fire station. It'll move past the fire station and then it'll cross where the old impoundment of water used to be. Prior to the dam being removed, you'll recall there was a big wetland area here, and it was mostly wet throughout the year. Once the Pennachuck Dam was removed, the barriers holding that water back eroded away, and this area is now fairly dry, although it's still pretty hydric soils. So we will have to have some supportive structure work to put a big culvert in so we can maintain that stream crossing and to support the trail through that area. Eventually, it makes its way to the other side of that impoundment where the trails go up into eventually 80 acres. And I can show a better visual of that. Let me take this one down and go to this picture. So again, this is the picture from Watson Park. This is the existing sidewalk. This is approximately where the connection will be made. This is the brown fence line at the southern end of the park. So the trail will come through this gated area and continue on its way into the old stock pens. These are the tannery pens. And like I said, we'll fix this sidewalk where the rusty steel plates are due to the corrosion on this sidewalk underneath it. This is actually a cantilevered sidewalk. There's no ground underneath it. It's supported by these beams that you see in the picture. There's another picture of the sluiceway. We'll be coming in through in about this location. Once through into the pens, then you can see the arch, which is the second part of the Chamberlain Bridge. To our left of this picture is the second arch that carries the river. So we'll actually be able to access underneath Daniel Webster Highway through this bridge. Eventually making it out into this old, again, part of the water sluiceway next to the fire department. Come to an old wooden gate. We're actually going to be able to preserve a lot of this stuff, which again made the historic and the archaeological folks quite pleased. We're going to be able to save a lot of that infrastructure for people to see, and we're going to have some signage there to tell the story of the Pennajuk Dam and the story of the sluiceway. We'll cross the impoundment. Like I said, it used to be wet. Now it's heavily vegetated due to the soils that remain. And we'll eventually get to the sign on the other side of the impoundment where the trail system begins up towards the high school and eventually into 80 acres, Wildcat Falls, and to the pedestrian bridge, which is currently closed. And I guess I think because you asked, Tim, I'll share one more shot about the connectivity of the trail system. This is a picture that we had put together for the grant to get the Sauhegan River Trail, just to kind of show the connectivity of all the trails in town and where they go. So by reference, this green line is the Sauhegan River Trail. That's the project we're going to be doing hopefully next year, constructing. All of the red lines are existing trail systems. The pedestrian bridge is right here. You can see it connects at the back of the high school property. Although it's, I did want to point out the parking at the high school is a fair amount away from the trail. So access isn't necessarily easy from the high school property, but it is possible. Then you can take the trail system up into, this is a DOT piece of property that I know the town council and the Conservation Commission have asked DOT to donate to the town, thus far unsuccessfully. And this is the Wildcat Falls Conservation property. Would you like me to leave that up for your discussions, Tim, or do you think everyone's seen enough?
I think we've seen it, and it does interfere with seeing all the participants in the meeting if we leave it up. So
okay, I'll take it down.
Okay.
And I guess open it up to any questions you have for me.
Any questions, folks? So I did let caller whose numbers end in 524. I did let them know that I'd let this person speak. That's Paul. Let's let Paul speak, and then let's entertain a recess if we can. So Paul, you're available to go.
Again, I thank the committee and everyone for letting me speak again. I didn't expect to be in so much, but with everything that's going on in the conversation, I just had a couple of questions that very quickly popped up. I did want to state that I think I wanted to reiterate what the chief had mentioned about, the officers have been down here. They've been very polite. They've been good. I really can't complain about, the way they've tried to handle things. I'm under the impression that their hands have been tied in many situations with what they can and cannot do. And I also think that by all means, we live in a free country. So wherever you come from, we don't want to judge by place and so on. But I think the idea behind, some people mentioning that is just to show that it has become a destination point for not just people from around here, but for people from all over in high volumes. And I guess I was just curious with the temporary no parking signs that are up. I was under the impression that they're unable to ticket anyone for parking in front of those. I was just curious if that was correct, because I wasn't sure if they were allowed to or not allowed to. And I had a note here of another one, but I can't seem to find it. But I think those were my main questions and things that I wanted to point out.
Okay, Chief Roy?
Thank you. If the question, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly, is can we ticket for the people who park in front of the temporary no parking signs that are there right now?
Yes, that is correct. I was just curious. Yes.
Sure. No, we cannot. Those were put up out of courtesy to try to prevent the people from parking. In order for us to make that enforceable, it has to go through a process which includes town council meetings. We've already had one discussion at a council meeting, and it would have to go to a public hearing, and then it would have to go back again in front of the council. So at this point, it's just to try to keep those people off both sides of the road, which we haven't been finding is a problem. But again, we're just trying to do everything we can to prevent it, but we cannot enforce those.
Thank you very much for answering that. I was just curious if, if that was possible. And that is what I had heard, so it makes a lot of sense and clarifies it. And I will say, if it's any consolation to the situation, being someone who's right here, and, on a Saturday or Sunday being out in the front yard with the kids, being present to see, because I know a lot of people aren't, and I completely understand that, but when you're the one standing here seeing all that traffic fly by and go on and go forth, it really brings it out. And I wanted to just make note that I did notice this weekend that the temporary signs did seem to help, because we did see many cars that had come down. The lot was full. People were parked up one side of the street, and quite a handful or two of them just turned around and left. So to me, that was an indication that perhaps the resident-only parking in this neighborhood would be effective, just from observing that from, a personal upfront point of view. And I just wanted to point that out because I thought it might be helpful.
All right. Thanks, Paul. I'm going to mute you now, and going to ask Nick, how do we go about doing a recess?
I can mute everybody's mic. You can call a recess, and when you come back, either yourself or Steve can just let us know that you're back and you're ready to commence the meeting. I can put on some music so that those that are joining us via phone will at least hear something while they're waiting for the meeting to come back.
That's wonderful. Does 5 minutes give us enough time? It probably does, right? It's 8:37 now. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess, and we'll reconvene at 8:42. All right, enjoy.
All right, I'll give you a call.
Okay. Call me at my office line. Thanks. just so you know, Denise had to sign out and she'll sign.
Thank you.
I have my computer up here, so I keep grabbing my mouse.
It is 8:42, so I guess we can officially call this meeting back into session. We got no one with a hand up and no callers asking to speak. So, Tim, do you want to take us through the second and third phases of this plan or proposal?
Sure. What I thought I would do is quickly run through the slides, and then we can get to the point where we might want to make a recommendation or not, just for the sake of time. Because I think it would be worthwhile if we got through this meeting and we did have a chance to come up with something that we wanted to pass along. So I think you can see the slides now, hopefully. And I'm just going to adjust my screen so I can see what's going on. So the next slide was still near term, looking at additional parking or not, potentially using the streets of the neighborhood. I think we've kind of covered some of this, so I'm going to move forward. One of the things we could be thinking about is expansion of the current parking lot. I drew some boxes, no real intent there. If we really wanted to explore this, I think it would be worthwhile asking Kyle if he has some thoughts on that. But I'm going to leave that be, and we can decide later, in a few moments whether we want to explore that or not. Looking a little bit further out, we could look at other options. So what I'm showing here, let me get my mouse on the right screen. So this is the end of West Chamberlain Drive. That option, I think, is pretty much gone away because it relies on the fact that there's a pedestrian bridge, which we no longer have open for us. So that could be probably something that needs to be looked at much longer term. So I think 6 to 12 months out is probably not reasonable here. So that was one option. Kyle addressed access from Watson Park, utilizing the river trail. I think if we're at all thinking of that, look here on the picture and look at the size of the parking lot for Watson Park. I would venture a guess that it probably doesn't go beyond 20 spaces or maybe 25 spaces. So I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't think of that as a big win here, but that's just something we could look at. And then of course the other one that I've thought about and presented here is access from the high school. And there are two trails, which you can see in two different slides coming forward. Note that there was one thing that I didn't bring up, but I was a town councilor during the times of the pedestrian bridge going in, and we were looking at options for getting to the property and relieving parking while the whole highway stuff was going on. So we actually looked at a bridge here, if you can see where my mouse is, over by the ball fields and behind the highway garage as an option. But the width of that bridge was made it fairly cost prohibitive. But I just wanted to let you know that was an option that we looked at a number of years ago, over 10 years ago at this point. Then the option for the pedestrian bridge came into being, and the cost of that was much easier to handle there. So that's just something to be aware of. So this screen here is speaking a little bit more about the high school. This was something that I found on All Trails. There's a number of different websites outside of our own that show the various trails in our part of the world, as well as many others. So this one shows you going around past the softball field and in. And then one more. This was the original iTrack project that was done a number of years ago that we got some help from NRPC to put together and kind of kick things off. And it speaks to the other trail, which is also available that comes down through here too. So essentially that's the bulk of the slides. At this point, I think it'd be good for us to be thinking about, what do we want to do? We spent more than a couple of hours now looking at this. We've all been looking at it individually, and I think it would be good for us to come up with some recommendations, or not at least, or as a group decide that we don't want to do that. And that's kind of how I think I want to stop. Does anyone want me to show any more of the slides or go any further with this? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna stop the share and so what's the pleasure of the commission? Pete?
Listening to everything, you almost get the feeling like there's really not a lot we can do, but there are some things that, Gina mentioned, pulling the information down off the website for a period of time, that may be helpful. I think to the people watching or listening to this, the great point was made by the chief and by Gage is the folks that live in these neighborhoods need to call when things are actually happening. There's another short-term approach as far as I can see. Maybe the other option on the short term is, should we as a commission be getting down behind those trails off of O'Gara behind the high school and maybe clearing them up, making them a little better access and some better signage and markings on them too, to make those more accessible as well. So that would be, for me, the short term, these would be suggestions, and the long term would be, longer terms would be, residential parking, residential only parking, and maybe residential only use of the parks, along with maybe just some overall, like the footbridge eventually getting replaced and so forth. That's all I have.
Okay. Before we go to anyone else, Gina, do you want to read the reply from the superintendent of the school?
Absolutely. Superintendent said, in response to your email, I'm pleased to tell you that, all right, I need a light, hold on. There, I had everything nice and dark before. Okay, in response to your email, I'm pleased to tell you that at last night's school board meeting, the board authorized administration to reach out to you regarding your request relative to parking, etc. We will be happy to partner with you for sure. I have reached out to our maintenance director and business administrator for guidance about signage, etc. I will get back to you shortly with answers to that and other questions. What is your time frame for firm answers? Again, we will do whatever we can to support the Conservation Commission with this request. It may just take a day or so to address the particulars. I look forward to partnering. Regards, Mark McLaughlin. So that's very nice. I'm very, very grateful to Shannon Bards and Cinda Guglielmi for, I hope I pronounced that right, for expediting my very late request.
So we didn't spend much time talking about partnering with the school district, but that's probably something we do want to explore and doing some more on. So where do you want to go next? So Pete, you made a number of comments. So do you want to see what the will is of the commission towards pulling the web page down, or any of the other things that you brought up?
Yeah, Tim, I think maybe if this is the appropriate time, I could make a motion that at this point in time, we would remove any reference right now to the Wildcat Falls Conservation Area on our website to include the information, pictures, and maps right now, at least for a short period of time.
Anyone want to second that?
Second.
Okay, I'll take a roll call vote.
So before you start, please allow some discussion on it. And for the record, you probably should say who made the motion and who made the second. So, and Gage, I think, wanted to discuss the motion.
Yeah.
Pete made the motion. Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Seconded by Gina. Gage?
Tim, you know the website the best. What kind of effort is this going to be to just take out Wildcat Falls? I mean, I think that's not, we didn't design the website to be piecemeal like that, I don't believe.
No, not entirely. It will certainly be a little bit of a challenge, but I would suspect I can accomplish it. I may have to ask for some help from our web folks, and as long as it doesn't require extensive, beyond an email or two, I think I could probably make that request. But if it goes beyond that, we might have to authorize expenditures in order to have the web company help us get that done. So,
Mike?
Yeah, I was just curious. Do you know how many hits the website gets? Like, will it be worthwhile to go through this effort?
Well, with the latest software, I don't see the statistics I used to get, so I can't tell you that information. I did look for that a couple of months ago. So,
yeah, that would be my concern. Like, is it really worth doing that? Do enough people really find out about Wildcat Falls through that website, or do they really find out about it through all trails and all the stuff that's on the internet?
Yeah, I think a lot more people are looking at LL Bean than Merrimack Outdoors. That's truly in the catalog.
Have you seen the catalog?
No, I mean, I'm saying from what you set up, if it's in the catalog, a lot more people are seeing that than are going to Merrimack Outdoors.
Yeah, I haven't seen the catalog though, so I'm hearing it. I almost called LL Bean today.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to, before we go down that path, I'd like to maybe get for Tim to look at this first and see if it's really something that we can do. I'm not really on board for taking the website apart for something we're not even sure if it's going to have an impact.
well, I think if the commission wanted me to, I can make an attempt at accomplishing it, and we can see how far we get. If we hold off till our next meeting in order to go down this path, it could be weeks. So if you trust that I'll give it my best effort, and if I'm not fully capable of getting it done, I can certainly get rid of maps and pictures. I mean, that's easy. But all references to the page, I might have to change the page to say under construction or something like that. So I guess I could accomplish mostly of the intent anyways, without costing us any money. So just wanted to throw that out there if that's something you want to do. My opinion is that we don't get enough traffic that way. I've done Google searches over the last couple of days, also used Bing and other things, and there are more ways to find Wildcat Falls on the internet than Merrimack Outdoors. But I must tell you that if you do a Google search, Merrimack Outdoors does pop up near the top of the list. So you can find the more details. So, Mr. Chairman, it's up to you to do the next step.
All right, I'll do a roll call vote. Gina?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, just updating my notes here. Pete is here, so Mike, you are not sitting in voting for him. Cindy?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Eric, who's sitting in for Matt?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
I don't believe.
Sorry. I'm sorry, yeah. Well, I have too many lists here, thank you.
Yep.
So motion passes, and I'm a yes, sorry, motion passes 7-0-0.
All right, so along the theme of near-term stuff, we've heard from Pete now. Who next would like to chime in on that? Or are we done the near term? Gage?
I'd like to see if the police have, they put a traffic speed cam down there, whatever it was. If they have some idea of the times when there's high traffic volume, it might be worthwhile to see if they have the ability to have some pointed or on point times when there can be on site to see if their presence is going to have any kind of impact to some of the activities that have been going on down there. Oh, Chief, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Had to
Oh, that's all right. Thank you.
So yeah, I actually can get you the numbers as far as the traffic goes. The count. Is that what you're asking?
Well, we're more concerned about the timing. I mean, instead of just going down there because there's time. I mean, if there's a time, then there's a higher traffic volume. I would think that would be more indicative of when we're going to be seeing more of the problems there.
Yeah. We certainly have that information, and I can certainly collect it. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't give it to you.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine.
I will definitely forward it off to everybody. And again, it's even in the busier times, we'll certainly try to get there as frequently as possible, but it's not always possible.
Right. I'm not saying, but that's, we're making recommendations. So I'm saying, if we could have some targeted enforcement on the times that we think it's the busiest, that might have the best effect on some of the people that are causing the problems.
Absolutely. I'll get you that. I'll forward it to everybody tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Bover.
I'm assuming in the near term that the signage is for the temporary not parking on one side of the street, that's going to stay? That's a question.
Yeah, it's going to stay for right now. I don't have a time frame on exactly when it will come down, but I would anticipate it'll come down probably within the next few weeks.
The neighborhood, I don't know, we might want to consider leaving that up.
Unfortunately, it's not. I mean, the neighborhood can't decide that. It's got to come from the town manager, and it was at her direction that I put the signs up there.
Thank you.
Mike, I think the Highway Safety Committee, remember, they're also going to make a recommendation to the town council and short town manager. I think they would probably provide that sort of feedback.
And there is a Highway Safety Committee meeting next week. We were just waiting until the outcome of this happened so that we would know what your thoughts were for what you were going to advise.
So before I recognize you, Pete, just a quick question, Steve. Does that mean that you'd like to move that a recommendation to the Highway Safety Committee is to look at the temporary signs and how long we leave them there?
Yeah, would we need a motion for that, or would that simply be a communication I would send to?
Well, it either needs to be a motion or a clear consensus, and where we're virtual, it probably is best handled as a motion.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess I'll make a motion that we ask the Highway Safety Committee to make this part of their an agenda item for their meeting next week.
I'm sorry, just for clarity, what's this? You said make this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Make a review of the temporary parking ban.
To make it permanent, or
to continue it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a poor job with that motion. Someone else want to help me out and clean that up and make a better motion? I'm trying to write and speak and think at the same time, and obviously, certainly can't pull off all three at once. Yes, Chief.
I don't know if this helps or not, but as a matter for the parking, the emergency no parking, temporary no parking, that has to come from the council. It can't come from the Highway Safety Committee. The only reason we put these up, it was after consultation from the town manager with the council to try to eliminate some of these problems. The only way that those can remain for an extended period of time is if the council actually, if we go to the council, and it has to be for an event that's happening, or an emergency, and this isn't considered an emergency or an event. So those are the only times that those signs can really be erected and be enforced. So I don't know if that matters to anybody or not, but we're certainly going to talk about no parking at the Highway Safety Committee meeting.
Would that be an item for them to have to discuss too, with making that a resident only parking?
It would be something that we would discuss. Again, all these things would have to go through the council only.
Well, yeah, for final, but I mean, is that something that the highway committee would be doing initially? Would that be their?
Yes, it does fall under the purview. Again, I'm not one way or another. It's certainly
Right.
a discussion. Yeah, it's certainly a discussion that we will have next week.
Pete?
I can tell you this, that I'll certainly present to the town manager that we, enforceable or not, we leave those signs up there, and I'll support that with the council. The other thing I wanted to know was, Chief, is it possible, we're coming up to the end of the fiscal year, and typically there may be some unexpended funds, and I would suggest to the town manager, possibly based upon your information from the traffic monitor, peak hours and so forth, that maybe some overtime be allocated during these peak hours for an officer for directed patrol in that neighborhood, just for the purpose of addressing all of these issues specifically.
I will discuss it with her.
Thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion from Steve to recommend to the Highway Safety Committee that they look at the use of the temporary signs. Question I have is do we want to continue with that motion, or since we have the chair of the Highway Safety Committee on the line here, do we want to just recognize that she has heard our concerns and will take them to the committee?
I'm the latter.
Okay. All right. So Steve, just for formalities, are you withdrawing your motion then?
I am withdrawing that motion.
Okay. All right. So let's continue with other near-term items. I know Gina, you had suggested a few things. Is there anything else you'd like to move forward with?
Well, thank you, Pete, for talking about taking it off the website. And I mean, I personally still think it's a good idea to take the word falls out. Just even after talking to Sharon when she said how many people call and ask about the falls, people want to come and see the falls. Lanborough closed Purgatory Falls because they got too many people up there and was creating the same situation that we're having here. So it would not happen immediately, but eventually, I think that if we take the word falls out, whether we just change it to Wildcat Conservation Area or we change it back to 80 acres, I think eventually people would stop remembering it. You'd get a few diehards, but for the people that all of a sudden are like, have just discovered hiking because of COVID, they'll forget about it after a while. And then people can go back and have a little bit more peace in the neighborhood.
The property is up over 80 acres now, so that name that's why the name change happened, because we purchased a piece of property or parcel that was adjoining it, so it became larger than 80 acres.
Right, but just because it's 87 acres doesn't.
Well, just so people understand, it's about 100 acres now. So
yeah, but 80 acres sounds cool. So roll off your tongue. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just a name that we can go back to. And the people that lived in the town before would know what we're talking about. But the people that are coming in from out of the area, I think the whole idea of starting this, and I wasn't on the commission when we purchased this property, but I think that this was supposed to be a community treasure. We wanted to preserve it for the community, not necessarily so that people from 2 states over could come up and throw beer cans out. I'm just thinking that we don't want to draw attention to the fact that there are waterfalls. I mean, I fielded, we had one tour bus that came up, then I had another person that ended up messaging, and they wanted to bring 2 bus loads full of Italian tourists that had come to Boston to listen to the opera. And she wanted to take them to see the waterfalls after going to the outlets. I said, go to Mines Falls. I said, we're not equipped for 2 tour buses. Go to Mines Falls. It's a nice and even. No one will trip.
So Gina, do you have a motion?
I would be happy to make a motion to change the name of Wildcat Falls Conservation Area to 80 acres, or another name that does not contain the word falls.
Okay, sorry, I'm just going to ask you to clarify your motion a little bit. Can you be a little more definite?
Okay, I will make a motion to change the name Wildcat Falls Conservation Area to 80, spelled out EIGHTY, acres.
Is there a second?
Come on, people. Hey.
Second for the sake of discussion.
Okay, so for the sake of discussion, Pete seconds the motion to change it to 80 with the number spelled out, acres. Any discussion on the motion?
I guess I just had a question. I just wondering, how is the damage done? I mean, what we've been through in the last 8 weeks has forced people to use this trail probably repeatedly that never knew it existed before. If we did change the name, how long would it really take for something like, for a move like that to gain some traction and really start dissuading out-of-state visitors from coming to it?
I don't know the answer to that.
Changing the name is not going to take it off the websites, and it's just going to change the name we put on the map.
So just for a quick comment, all we can do at this point is recommend the name change. The change will have to go through the town council, but we can make the recommendation and ask for an agenda item to have the name change. So just wanted to make sure that folks who are listening and watching understand that that's the path this is going to have to take if the motion is successful. Pete?
And you got to keep in mind, I don't believe we have our next council meeting even scheduled right now. I'm hoping it is within the next couple of weeks, but so at the very least, you could be looking at it a month and a half before it becomes official.
This is not an instant. This is not going to solve the immediate problem. This is something that I'm thinking will be more of a long-term, solution to, 3 years down the road. Hopefully people, once all of this pandemic is over, people will start, Googling waterfalls, New Hampshire, and hopefully won't see Wildcat Falls pop up.
Cindy?
Do you think if it was just Wildcat Conservation, that would be too close to Wildcat Falls?
I personally do think it would be. I'm just thinking of going back to 80 acres because it is what it was before.
Mike Boisvert?
Potentially, I think in the long term, Gina probably has a point. It might, just the wording might make some difference a couple of years from now. It might get more lost on the internet. So it could be some value there.
Okay, are we ready to vote on the motion?
Okay. Gina?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Gage?
No.
Eric?
No.
Mike? Mike, who's on mute?
Which Mike, me?
Yes, you.
Okay, this is a tough one, but I'm gonna say yes.
Tim?
Not today. I'm not a voting member today.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's twice I've done that. Did I skip somebody? One, two.
You have Pete and yourself, I believe.
I skipped Pete. Sorry, Pete.
Yes.
I'm a no, but the yeses have it 4-3-0.
All right, and just for clarification, that's to make a recommendation to the town council to change the name of the property to 80 acres. Okay, by the way, just for a point of comment, Mike Swisher, you're always welcome to contribute to the discussion. So feel free to do that if you choose on any of these motions.
I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Any other near-term items that any of the commissioners would like to bring up? If not, I'd like to suggest one that it's been touched on but not really dwelled on, and that is I can't make a motion. If someone feels compelled to do that, that would be great. But I'd like to see us remove the Heritage Trail sign at the intersection of Courier Road and Babusick Lake Road, and any other signage that may still exist on the property. There used to be a sign near the entrance to the parking lot that is probably gone now. I don't recall seeing it, but to have those signs removed, because before I let someone make the motion, the reason for this is the Heritage Trail doesn't exist anymore. With the restructure, with the wood cutting that was done in 2010 or 2011, updates to the sewer system going in, the trail in its original form doesn't exist anymore. All the signs that were on the trees that are still left on the property have all fallen and gone away. I tried to walk that trail actually last year because I wanted to actually make this motion over a year ago, and I couldn't recall any of those signs. And if you really wanted, I couldn't find any of those signs. If you really wanted to find the existing trail, in over 10 years, nature has reclaimed the pieces that don't exist, and it is just pieces. Some of the trail still does exist, but they've been renamed. So that's just a thought. Gina, you have your hand up.
Well, I just want to make sure that I have all because you said a lot there. So you want to remove the Heritage Trail signs from Babusick Lake Road. What else did you want?
In any other references to any other signs on the current property that might say Heritage Trail, but I don't think there are any. But
so moved.
Yeah, can we just say so moved?
Yep.
Okay.
Pete moves.
Second.
Gina seconds. Any discussion? Go ahead, Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we need further discussion on this? No? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Cindy?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
And I am a yes also, so that motion carries 7-0-0.
So just for clarity, I'm not sure if that has to go to the town council or if the town manager is able to do that, because I just don't know the process. So I would think that we would want to pass that recommendation through the town manager. Pete, is that something you could do for advice or guidance?
Yeah, Tim, I will tomorrow reach out, or I'll email the town manager tonight after the meeting, and just let them know that's our recommendation. Was it under our authority or our request that the signs were put up?
No, actually, the signs were purchased and put up by the Heritage Trail Committee that went defunct. Mike Bover, do you know when that committee went defunct? Because I know you were a member at one point.
I don't know exactly when I do remember when it went defunct, but I can't tell you the year. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I would have to guess it was before 2007. So.
Okay, well, what I can do, Tim, is I'll see if we can just have them taken down. If we can't, I'll ask for it to be put on the council agenda. And,
okay.
Make a motion based upon the Conservation Committee's recommendation.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other near-term items that we might want to go forward with? Eric?
Just to clarify, are we able to maybe put up a sign at the entrance of Wildcat Falls recommending overflowing parking to park at the high school?
I think that's something we would want to do in conjunction with the school district. But Gina?
Oh, I was just going to say that I'm waiting for the direction from the superintendent, and then once we know what they can do as far as signs, then we'll know what we can do as far as signs.
Okay.
And my other question too is, do we need to clear trails from the high school before we put those signs up?
Pete?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's been a little while, but last time I was down there, you can walk them, but we do need to do some trail clearing there and clean it up a bit. And I guess that would fall on us to just make the effort to do it, which I'm more than happy to help out with.
So. Okay.
Can I speak? Yeah, so I was there today. The trails are not in perfect condition, but they are visible. You know where to go. I can really head back there tomorrow and just sort of clear the trails. The trail behind the softball field is pretty clear. It's really the first trail that you see that is a little hidden by the side. Hard to explain. That is a bit more complicated. I think there's a fallen tree on it. There's a small land bridge that goes across a wetland, and it's not perfectly defined, but anyone walking that trail would be able to see where to go next. So it does need to be maintained, but it's visible.
What about some trailhead signage and some markers along the trail, just to help people along?
That's all school property. We're just gonna need to make sure that's coordinated with the school.
Right. When I went down there recently too, it's hard to know where the trail is. You do need signage.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick comment, Eric, I would be cautious on doing any maintenance on the trail before we understand that's desired. So I think that's a follow-up that Gina, can you help with that follow-up with the school district, and then we could take it up at our next meeting?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Going back to Eric's question though, is can we put something up on the sign going into Wildcat regarding overflow parking? Is yes, I think that's in our abilities, but if we're going to direct them to someone else's property, I think we need to get with that property owner first.
I would like to make a motion regarding the creating of 2 trailhead signs for that area. I guess with the caveat that we just need to get permission from the school to put them up. But while we're all together, should we vote on something like that and at least have it in the process so we could get it done?
I would believe that we could have a motion to expend up to so many dollars from a particular fund to accomplish that and empower one of our commissioners to make the decisions necessary. I think that's one way we can move this along quicker if you'd like, Pete.
Yeah, I would make the motion then that we encumber $200 for the creation of 2 trailhead signs for the trails off of the 2 trails off of O'Gara Drive to be taken from the Conservation Commission's fund.
Fund 53.
Fund 53. Thank you.
Pete, I think like the trail down by the softball field would probably need an additional sign directing you down to where the trail is down by the softball field from the high school parking lot.
So I would amend my my funding then to I would be surprised if it goes over $200, but I'd go up to 300 then for the creation of 3 signs. And under Mike's recommendation, I'd amend that.
A second.
That was seconded by Steve, did I hear?
Yes. Yep.
Gage?
Could we, instead of putting a number of signs in there, Pete, could we just say $300 for signage and not limit ourselves to 3 signs?
That works for me, Gage. I'll amend my motion again for $300 for trailhead signage for the trails leading off of from behind the high school. Thank you.
I'll re-second.
From Fund 53. Any other discussion on this?
We need to name who's going to handle that.
We do, yes. So do you want to, let's put that all in the same motion. So is there a commissioner who chooses to be that liaison and help make those decisions?
I'm thinking Matt Karen. He's not here and can't defend himself.
Yeah, he is the side guy. Right?
He is the side guy. I can do it if he's not here, so I would be happy to check.
Okay, so amend the motion to enable Gina Rosati to expend those funds for this purpose.
And I would amend that motion to enable Gina Rosati to expend those funds for that purpose.
Yeah,
I'll second it again, but we can't amend anymore because I'm running out of space to write.
I'll check with Matt and make sure that he knows he can advise me on how to do this because I haven't advised me before.
Yeah, we can all support you to get it done.
Okay.
So, all right, Mr.
Any
Chair.
other discussion on this? Okay. Roll call vote. Gina?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
And I am also a yes, so that motion passes 7-0.
Okay, any other? So let me just bring it up because it is in the presentations come up. Is there any desire of the commission to even discuss closure of the property and close all access? I see Mike Swisher.
Yeah, not full closure, but I'm still a little bit of a fan of investigating the possibility of the property itself being resident only. So not just the parking, but the entire property. I think that would solve the volume problems, which would solve the trash problems, which would solve the parking problems. It would do it all. Now, whether or not it's even possible, not sure. So it's not maybe all that helpful because I don't have the answers, but you asked, and that's at least sort of a partial closure, at least to outside, non-resident individuals.
Pete?
Mike, to go to your question or statement, I think it's possible. In my mind, it would just be the, the ability to enforce it. I mean, how would you go about it? I'm not against it if it kind of lessens traffic in light of what we've seen, then I'm certainly not against that. But again, I don't know really how we would enforce it or the police would enforce it and so forth. So
Does anybody know how they manage that? For example, at the Busiest Lake with the Merrimack portion of the town beach?
But Busiest Lake, there's no Merrimack portion of the town beach. There's Four Seasons has a private beach, and Amherst has their town beach. But anyway,
there used to be a Merrimack section. I thought there was.
Are you thinking of Natticook?
No, I thought I was thinking of Busiest. I thought we had a little chunk, like real small.
All we have are fire lanes, and most of those fire lanes are barely visible that lead down to the lake.
All right. I must have been thinking about something else.
Merrimack residents used to be able to pay a fee to utilize the Amherst beach. I'm not sure if that's still possible or not.
Yeah, maybe I saw something related to that. I don't know about enforcement. I know that you could use the dump stickers, the transfer station stickers, to easily identify and not ask anybody to do anything else. It's an easy way to see a car should be there or should not be there. I'm just, it's something that maybe you could do sooner than later. Like all these solutions, I just keep trying to put myself into the perspective of the people in the neighborhood, watching the meeting now or going back and watching it and wondering what's actually happening as a result of this. Rerouting a lot of traffic to Wildcat sounds like the best answer that's in the works. As a result of this meeting, I'm sorry, rerouting traffic to the high school. And hopefully that fixes it. The superintendent seems to be amenable to working with us. That's great. I don't know what kind of volume they can support or whether that is a long-term solution because it's really only going to work when school's not in session. But I'd hoped at the end of the meeting there could be something new that the neighbors could be I don't know, a little more hopeful about in the near term.
Pete, could we ask for a legal opinion and what the process would look like?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm not against that at all. These are great questions, a great topic, and I get where Mike's coming from. I certainly, in my email tonight to the town manager, will ask for an opinion on that, and I'll CC the chairman and co-chair to, kind of get a feel on moving in that direction.
Thanks, Pete.
Okay, so we've been going now for 3 hours. We have Chief Roy and Department Head Kyle Fox on the line. Do we believe that we have any particular reason to keep them with us and allow them, if they choose to leave?
Yep.
All right. So yep. Go ahead, Chief. So yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you, Kyle.
And Kyle, you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to drop. It's totally up to you.
I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about some near-term stuff. I guess we've talked about maybe something a little bit further out, and that's exploring the high school. Are there any other long-term items? No. Basically, we know the town loop is going to be happening later, so it's probably something we need to see that get implemented before we can go further. I do want to bring up the fact that coming in from Watson Park will require us to cross property owned by the state of New Hampshire. So we may have to explore that a little bit further. In previous attempts to speak to them about using their property to access our property, they basically said, well, we haven't put up any signage or we haven't discouraged anyone, but they didn't really want to get into a firm agreement. But we could always address it again if we think it's important, but that would be something we might want to do once we know funding is in place and construction is going to start. So unless anyone has any other thoughts on that. So, all right. So are there any other actions or recommendations we'd like to make coming out of this meeting? All right, well, seeing none then, Steve, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to you, and I would suggest that we have this on our next agenda for our next meeting, and I would request that we get permission to get back to having regular meetings on a regular basis, because there's other business we need to attend to as well.
Absolutely, I agree. I'll talk to Sharon tomorrow and see what that process looks like. Putting the Conservation Commission schedule back in effect with regular meetings, or at least more of these virtual meetings. We only had the one agenda item. I guess before we conclude, it's probably worth doing that. I know we all feel this way, but I appreciate all the support we got from Merrimack TV and all the folks behind the scenes that trained us on how to pull this off tonight. It wasn't easy. I can imagine certainly not something they prepared for, but when you think of the volume of people in town that have participated in these virtual meetings, wouldn't have been possible without all their support. Someone may want to make the final motion.
May I bring in one more thing?
Absolutely.
I'd also like to thank the members of the public who provided emails as well as participated in this meeting. It's really great to hear from the residents and others what's on their mind. And I hope you all felt that you had the opportunity to speak your mind and provide that. I can tell you that this meeting will be watched by the Highway Safety Committee. It'll be watched by the town council members, if not live, certainly in replay. So your message, I think, will get out even beyond us. So just a last thought.
Great point. And I guess I should go around the horn and do commissioner comments anyhow. Gage, anything?
I'm all set.
Gina?
All set.
Cindy?
Nope, I just want to thank Tim for putting this together, and thank you, Steve, for sharing it, and thank you, Gage, for the seedlings giveaway.
Mike, B?
No further comments, and yeah, thank you, Steve and Tim and everybody for putting it together.
Pete, how about you?
Just the residents over in the Curry Road area, call it in when, I think one of the big takeaways tonight, call things in when things are happening. Report it then and now. Thanks.
Great point. Tim, I appreciate all your help getting ready for this. Did you have any other comments?
I'm all set, thank you.
Eric?
Nothing else to add.
And Mike?
Nothing from me. It's good to see all you guys.
Likewise. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who was that in a second? I'm sorry. Gage?
Yep.
You gotta give me time to get my pen out.
No.
Gage. Roll call vote. Gage?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
And Eric?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. I guess that concludes, what is the time?
9:36.
9:36. This meeting is adjourned.
Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning. I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.